Okay, hi everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to the webinar series 3 on stormwater management. This webinar is jointly organized by NUS Environmental Research Institute NERI and Center for Water Research CWR at National University of Singapore, together with the Joint Research and Demonstration Center for Water Technology, JRDC, Ministry of Water Supply and University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka. This program could not have been made possible without the support from PUB. And today's theme is stormwater management. We all understand the importance of stormwater management. It is important to reduce stormwater peak flow and to enhance surface water quality. We are proud today to have 4 speakers provide their views and talk about challenges and treatment strategies on stormwater management. I would like to take the opportunity to welcome today's presenters, Prof. Lalith Rajapaksa, Kirti, Dr. Xue Leong, and Professor Jiang Yonghu. We expect each speaker to have the floor for 20 minutes. And at the end of the session, we will have Q&A for 30 minutes. Q&A session will be moderated by Professor Gunawardena. We are all looking forward to learning and sharing successful experiences from this webinar. If you have any questions during the presentations, please type them into the question box. We'll bring them up during the Q&A session. If you would like a specific panelist to answer the question, please mention the panelist's name first, then the question. So that's all for the housekeeping. I will now turn over the time to our first speaker, Prof. Lalith, to share about stormwater management practice in Sri Lanka, past, present, and future direction. Time is yours, Prof. Lalith Rajapaksa.
Thank you, Dr. Tony. Can you please allow me to share? Okay, very good morning to you all, and good afternoon to those who are joining from Singapore. Before commencing my lecture here, I would like to use this opportunity to thank NUS Environmental Research Institute, NERI, and Center for Water Research at NUS, and also the Joint Research and Demonstration Center for Water Technology, JRDC, at Peradeniya and Peradeniya University, and also Water Ministry and Public Utilities Board, Singapore, for arranging this very important, useful workshop and giving us the opportunity to share our experience. So the topic I'm going to share today is stormwater management practices in Sri Lanka, past, present, and future directions. Actually, here I would be talking about general aspects related to water and stormwater management practices. And my colleague, Engineer Kirti, will present several case studies, which are more field-based studies related presentations. So I would cover a general introduction and why stormwater management is important. And then I will briefly touch stormwater management practices with historical evidence, present practices, and normally we have different approaches for rural stormwater management and urban stormwater management. And then today we have computer-based hydrological and hydraulic modeling for stormwater management. I will briefly explain some of our past experience. And this is what we have been doing up until now. But now we have challenges. So then I will discuss about challenges, how to overcome them, and future directions in stormwater management, referring to climate change impact and the frequent occurrence of extreme events, and also the sustainable and water-sensitive urban drainage design, which is a key topic these days. And then I will talk about different aspect of hydrological modeling, how to incorporate ecosystem modeling into a hydrological model. And then how can we use this for drainage and stormwater design purposes? I will very quickly go through several case studies and then conclusive remarks. So before moving further, I thought it would be useful for you to let you know about Sri Lanka. It is a tropical island located just south of India, and the size is 65,000 square kilometers with a coastline of 1,340, and the present population here is 22 million almost, and normally we get rainfall based on northeast monsoon December to March and southwest monsoon June to October. So the wet zone receives about 2,500 to 5,000 millimeter per year, and intermediate zone 1,900 or 1,750 to 2,500, and the dry zone receives less than 1,750. Here you can see the wet zone, which is normally exposed to the southwest monsoon, and the majority of the country belongs to the dry zone and intermediate zone. So as I mentioned earlier, the terrain, it is relatively flat in the coastal zone, and then there is a central hill area, and then we have 103 major rivers radiating from these central hills in various directions. So in a way, Sri Lanka is a water-rich country. So that emphasizes the need for managing stormwater, because we receive a lot of rainfall, especially during the wet season, and then we have water moving in all directions radially from this central hill area. So there are various areas which are flood prone, so stormwater management is very important. And if I'm going to tell you very briefly what is stormwater management means. So stormwater is a term used to describe water that originates during precipitation events. It may apply to water that originates with snowmelt or runoff in cold region countries, and that snowmelt water then enters into natural streams. So stormwater that does not soak into the ground becomes surface runoff. They freely flow under gravity over the ground, which either flows to waterways, or if they are not connected to waterways, we need to channel them into storm sewers, ditches, culverts, and drain them out from our development areas. Otherwise, there will be flood impacts. So why stormwater management is important? Stormwater is of concern for two main issues. One related to the volume and timing of runoff. That is, if we do not manage stormwater properly, that will lead to flooding and issues in water supply systems. And the other related aspects is the potential contaminants. So moving water can carry a lot of pollutants. So water pollution affecting usable water resources. So because of these two reasons, flooding and environmental pollution, erosion, we need to manage stormwater properly. So this is a basic diagram showing natural stormwater flows. But what happens is, during the process of development, we convert some of these pervious or porous layers into impervious layers. So then what will happen is, there will be high component of overland flow, less infiltration, that creates flooding. So when it comes to Sri Lanka, we are very famous for ancient water management systems. So I'm going to talk about stormwater management as well as water management together here. The dry zone stormwater harvesting and management systems in Sri Lanka is one of the oldest historically recorded systems in the world, not only in the South Asian region, but in the entire world. So the historical evidence mentions the management and governance structure of this system, suggesting it was initiated in the 4th century BCE, that is before Common Era, and then later abandoned in the middle of the 13th century because of the human settlement moving into different areas. So the complex interconnected systems of reservoirs and canals that sustainably supported vast areas of paddies and cities, especially forming cascade-based water management systems, inherently incorporated stormwater drainage and flood mitigatory aspects into their long-term water management perspectives. So initially, I'm sure these small reservoirs were built for water storage purposes, and you can see these small dots all over the dry zone area, and this is the wet zone free of many reservoirs. So these dots represent reservoirs interconnected in a cascade nature. So if we look at the historical evidence, the NERI well was constructed almost 1,750 years ago. And the Anuradhapura kingdom, famous ancient kingdom for water management and irrigation practices, that was about 100, almost 500 years ago. And the Sigiriya, which is famous for Sigiriya forest coast. So there had been a very developed water management system because the palace and the kingdom administrative bodies were located on top of the mountain. Still, how water was moved on top of the ground mountain is partly unknown. And in the garden, there was a very developed stormwater management structure where the stormwater from surrounding area and the hilltop was collected and distributed into the pond system somewhere here. So we believe that those are huge achievements at a time of ancient age. So historic examples of catchment-based integrated water management that can be traced back to well over several thousand years. They are found in Europe, pre-Columbian America, Asia, South Asia, especially in Sri Lanka and the Middle East. So there are several historians who have written about ancient water management practices in Sri Lanka. What I wanted to highlight was this system called cascades. Water moving from one microcatchment to another, water is utilized fully. And because of this system, not only the irrigation, but stormwater management was supported. You can see small reservoirs connected to the stream, and then there are large reservoirs towards the downstream part. And it is an entire ecosystem fed by this water system. So they are connected to each other and they serve very important ecological functions in addition to providing water for irrigation and also helping managing stormwater that is otherwise could have led to flood issues. So that is about the history. But when it comes to present day stormwater management practices, in the recent past, the majority of stormwater management projects in the country have been designed based on the knowledge base developed in the early 1900s or mid-century, particularly following theories, empirical equations, and insights. Normally, the approach to stormwater management is, it is a combined approach which uses hydrologic and hydraulic models or estimations to determine the catchment contribution to the outlet, and then the hydraulic part comes into the picture for designing conveyance analysis. So Both are important because the hydrologic part determines how much water is available, where and when, or how often. And the hydraulic part is important because that determines the conveyance part or the structure design infrastructure, including design parameters, the channel depth, width, flow velocity, and freeboard, and so on. So the contributory catchment analysis and peak flow estimation in the old days, they were done manually, but now we have various compute applications, and we have conceptual and also empirical methods, including rational method. And then we have conceptual models like HMS. We have detailed distributed models like actually HMS is semi-distributed, and MIC-NAM and various other models are there, both conceptual and distributed type. And the unit hydrograph methods are also used for estimating large size catchments. So the floodplain and channel conveyance analysis is normally performed using software like HECRAS, MIC-Urban, or EPA, SWMM. So stormwater management model. So these provide water surface profile, that is the water depth, and also models like HECRAS can provide flood maps for land development and impact assessment caused by urbanization. So we can use available historical data for model calibration and validation. And the feature of the computation of the water surface profile normally involves use of probabilistic approach. We can select 1%, 2%, 10% annual chance of flooding or overtopping, or we call it as 100-year, 50-year, 10-year return period, average recurrence interval approach. Normally, surface runoff is stormwater in urban areas are designed for 2 to 5 year return periods. And for major floods, normally we go up to 50 to 100 year when we need to make the environment safe. So both 1D and 2D models are available. And 1D models usually do not include solutions for the flood problems, but they are good enough for most of the other engineering applications dealing with stream channel flows and urban stormwater management. So this slide covers a brief introduction to stormwater surface water models. As I mentioned earlier, we have 1D models, 2D models, and 3-dimensional models for more detailed analysis, which are somewhat complicated. Now we have CFD related model analysis procedures for detailed processes. And then this EPA stormwater management model is a distributed or semi-distributed dynamic rainfall runoff simulation model, which can also handle conduit flows, because normally we have channel flows, then they are connected to gullies and underground pipes. So SWMM has the capacity to handle both. So the models can be used to better understand stormwater generation and associated conveyance systems, and also to make predictions, and then to design or plan development activities. And all these models have different assumptions and simplifications. So when we use these models, it is very important to have a good understanding of these assumptions and simplification. And then we need to have reliable data for modeling. And when it comes to the stormwater management concepts, normally the rural setup and the urban setup are addressed separately in 2 different ways. The rural stormwater management systems are partially urbanized or semi or non-urbanized. And therefore, it is easier to mimic natural stormwater drainage patterns with lesser impact to the environment. However, these rural systems can also fail to function properly due to various temporary or long-term reasons. Some of the possible causes are extreme rainfall events, blocked channels due to lack of maintenance, or overstrained channel segments, sometimes due to design oversight or various other reasons. So the immediate impact of this kind of shortcoming is that will lead to minor to severe flooding and also stream channel erosion that causes water quality degradation in the downstream channels and reservoirs. So one advantage with these extreme events is they bring a lot of water. So we can store this water excess amount during the wet season and use that for irrigation and water supply purposes during the dry season. So that is why around 30,000 small tanks were built in the dry zone areas of Sri Lanka in the ancient history. And we have different techniques available for rural stormwater management: cascades or spade irrigation, moving water from one minor basin to another, and then micro basins, field trenches. Rainwater harvesting helps reducing peak discharge because we can retain and detain water until the peak is lapsed. So then we can slowly release water, excess water to the environment, and the accumulated amount of water can be used for various day-to-day purposes. So the urban water management concepts involve a different approach. So human settlement disturbs the natural water cycle and creates floods and water pollution. So natural vegetation is often removed for development activities, and to manage floods, we think that we need to canalize and straighten channels, streams. So surfaces are getting increasingly impermeable and impervious. And
you have 2 minutes to wrap up.
Okay, sure, right. I'll quickly pass out. So we need to address these urban water issues to make these sustainable. And when it comes to stormwater management options, we have different types of models and different types of approaches: detention, retention, diversions, hydraulic structures, and in the worst case, pumping. Gravity flow is the best. Pumping is always expensive and difficult to manage. And in addition to that, normally we need to look after groundwater part as well. Surface water can be seen, but sometimes urban setup destroys the groundwater aquifers and the recharge. So now what has happened? Because of the climate change, we have been experiencing unprecedented level of extreme events happening more frequently. We don't have to go further. Just in the last month, there was a big flood in Sydney, a developed city. And if you look at here, you can see the 2022 rainfall goes far above the previously observed rainfall data. And in India, 1,092 total rainfall since June 1st. That is about 4 times higher than the normal rainfall. And Mumbai was flooded just a couple of weeks ago. And for these type of extreme events, we definitely need structural measures. So, for instance, Japan, they have underground storage for stormwater, and they have well converted flooded areas for detention and retention. They are managing their stormwater resources very well. There are occurrences due to extreme events. They are also experiencing floods. And the solution to this is we need to be looking at more sustainable and water sensitive approaches. So they involve detention ponds and the source control and on-site detention, retention ponds, and green roofs, constructed wetlands, various approaches. So I will share these slides after the presentation so you can go through them if I am unable to cover them at the moment. So these sustainable approaches are very pleasing sometimes because it looks pleasing to the eye rather than having a tarmac here. And in addition to that, they can reduce the peak discharge, stormwater peaks, and also contribute much to the groundwater enrichment. And normally we use hydrological and hydraulic models for designing stormwater management structures. But now the trend is we incorporate ecosystem, crop growth, and various other ecosystem related functions into this hydrological model. They are called eco-hydrology or eco-hydraulics related models. So the advantage is, in addition to the water quantity, they can also simulate water quality erosion related issues. These are very good for overall basin management, for especially for urban areas, so that you can minimize the damages due to urbanization. So I'm going to briefly introduce you one such model, water and energy transfer model, that was actually developed by Public Works.
Sure. Thumbs up. Can you wrap up in 1 minute?
Okay, sure. Right.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
And I have included some model run results. And we recently applied this model to one of the basins in the dry zone in Sri Lanka. So we have included those findings in a publication. I have given the details here. So as I mentioned you earlier, in addition to the water quantity, we can have an idea about groundwater levels and also nutrient distribution in the surface water and also in the catchment as a whole. So there are various other climate related studies. Since the climate change is reality now, it is not a hypothesis now. So these climate related studies are very useful for future stormwater management purposes. So I have included several such studies here, both carried in Sri Lanka as well as outside. So you can briefly go through them. And at the end, I have included some case studies, but I'm not going to cover them here. I will share the slides. You can refer to them later. And if I'm going to wind up, the final take-home message is, now the traditional practice based on hydrology alone for stormwater designs have been challenged. So we need to consider eco-hydrology related aspects, but of course, when it comes to extreme events, we need to provide infrastructure. That is for sure. And we should target water control and managing, and instead of safe fail, we need to move to fail-safe structures, and we need to compare structural versus non-structural measures for stormwater management. And also, sometimes we cannot prevent flooding, stormwater accumulation, then we need to use different approaches. So anyway, we need to protect environment, and some countries have raised the bar from 5 to 10 year design versus 500-year return period due to these type of extreme events. But as developing nations, we will not be able to afford it. So our approach should be more environmental friendly approaches for micro water management, but for the macro level, we need to go for structural measures. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. Lale, for the informative information on stormwater management in Sri Lanka. I'm honored to introduce our second speaker, Kirti, to share about the experience of stormwater management in Sri Lanka in Greater Colombo area. Please join me in welcoming Kirti.
Okay, can you see this slide?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah. Very good morning to you all, and welcome to my presentation. I am Keith Ratna, Deputy General Manager for Research and Design Division of Sri Lanka Land Development Corporation. And before before going to the topic directly, I would like to give some words about my corporation. My corporation is Sri Lanka Land Development Corporation and was established in 1968. Since this, we have been serving for the nation in the field of hydrology, and these are the core areas that we have worked on. And as you can see here, maintenance of Colombo Canal System, I will explain it later in the later slide, and maintenance of retention area corresponding to the Greater Colombo Basin, and carry out drainage structure design and formulating flood mitigation proposal. In addition to the activities that you have shown here, we also did the drainage study for all the expressway projects that had been implemented so far in the countries. And having said that, I would like to come to our topic today, that is stormwater management in Greater Colombo Basin. That is the case study. Under my presentation, I'm going to cover all the steps that we have taken for managing the quantity of stormwater in order to reduce the flood peak, and two steps that we have taken to manage the water quality. As you can see here, this is the Greater Colombo Basin. It almost covers 85 square kilometer catchment area. It has 5 main outlets, namely Dehiwala, Vallavatta, Plaza, Mutual Tunnel, and North Lock. Except one outlet, that is North Lock. All other are known as the sea outfall. One. Before going to some more details, I would like to give some more detail about past extreme rainfall event that was occurred in this basin in the past. And first we come across in 1992, we had a severe rainfall and followed by the heavy disaster flood in the Colombo. The magnitude of this rainfall is about 492. That was occurred in a short period of time, that is 19 hours. And then again, we had a similar type of rainfall event occurred in 2010, November 2010, with the magnitude of 440 millimeter rainfall that also occurred in a short period in 16 hours. And with more details, you can see the severity of this flood in 1992. And talking about the hydrograph of 1992, you can see here two distinct events. Two distinct events can be seen. This is the one of the main cause for having such a disaster flood. And then again, let's talk about the extreme flood in November 10. That was actually flooded the entire Parliament Lake, Parliament premises in Colombo. Not only that one, greater part of this, our basin, Greater Colombo Basin, got inundated, thus paralyzing the day-to-day activity for a period of 2 to 3 days. And with more detail about the rainfall event in 2010, you can see here similar pattern in 1992. Here also you can see 3 distinct rain height hydrograph. That was the main reason for having such a huge flood. There is a similarity between this 92 and 2010. And with this one, I would like to get your attention to the methodology or activity and the basic criteria that we have adopted in managing the stormwater. Here you can see trans-basin diversion mechanism we have adopted, retention and detention technique we have adopted, enhancement of conveyance of drainage system, improvement of outfall capacity, wetland management study. All are the basic criteria that we have used to formulate a drainage management project in this basin. Now, I would like to talk about the flood mitigation project that we have carried in the basin in the past since 1992 up to 2002. We have carried out a major flood mitigation, three major flood mitigation projects as mentioned here. One is the Greater Colombo Flood Control and Environment Improvement Project. We call it under phase 1, started from 1992 and ended in 1998. With more detail about this one, under this particular project, we were able to rehabilitate the entire main canal system of the basin, as you can see here. That is about 44 kilometer length of main canal system has been developed under this project. Not only that one, trans-basin mechanism also we have used to mitigate the high peak flood that might be possible in this basin. That is that diversion is called marginal diversion. And you can see some photographs that we have taken during the construction before and after this project. And the Hivalga, one of the outfall canals. After implementing this one, you can see the below photograph, then the present day situation. Likewise, Tirlopana Canal, one of the canal in our basin, Torrington Canal, Torrington North Canal, like this one. This is the diversion canal that I explained at the beginning of this one. We have constructed under phase 1 project of the Greater Colombo Flood Mitigation Environment Improvement Project. Having said that, we also continue this project phase 2 in 2005 to during the period of 2000 to 2005, where we have developed, we improved the drainage system in 5 isolated projects. As you can see in the graph, that is Dematakoda, Unity Plaza, Serpentine, St. Sebastian, Torrington South. Like these 5 number of isolated projects, local drainage system we have developed under phase 2 in the Greater Colombo Flood Control and Environment Improvement Project. Here you can see some of the photographs we have taken during the construction. Unity Plaza tunnel, underground tunnel. First time we have constructed for the purpose of stormwater, discharging in stormwater in the localized areas. And these are the photos. Torrington South Canal, likewise. Yes. Then this is the latest project that we have completed recently. We call it Greater Colombo Urban Development Project. Under this project, actually, we were able to construct the underground stormwater drainage network and stormwater pumping station. We have constructed several pumping stations. Then again, we have constructed, have designed diversion scheme, flushing gate and canal system, and establishment of hydrometeorological data management system. And all these we have carried out in order to control the manage the stormwater peak and in the main system. And not only that one, at the under this project, at the actually Colombo Municipal Council has carried out several projects to enhance the secondary drainage system, what we call micro system. They have actually identified almost all the places where flooding is occurring, but under this one they were able to complete some few more projects. This. And here you can see the Greater Colombo Urban Development Project map, the similar one that you have shown earlier. And next, I would like to tell you about the flood resilient capacity of the basin. Before starting the this project, you can see this pie chart where it was explained very well, explained the capacity of the existing system. Here you can see 476 millimeter daily rainfall is the rainfall design rainfall magnitude corresponding to the 50-year design rainfall year. Once it is fallen into the catchment, 39% of this runoff is looked after by the wetland as storage. Then again, 80% of the runoff is discharged to North Lobe, one of our outfall canal. And then again, 30% of the runoff is looked after by the Wastewater outfall canal. Likewise, you can see here 35% of the runoff is the portion that create the flood in the our Greater Colombo Basin. After implementing this MCDP drainage system, and this scenario has completely changed. Now you can see under this pie chart, the 30% of the flood runoff that was caused flood at the earlier stage now reduced up to 1% while improving the outflow capacities of the basin. With this one, actually, before implementing this project, we have carried out a comprehensive hydraulic and hydrodynamic project for this one with the use of modern technology. And we use micro and flood modeling for modeling the entire basin. These are some of the photographs we have taken from the study flood map for 50-year favorable condition with the existing scenario. And with MCDP intervention, you can see here some more difference flood rasters. I will explain what is the favorable and condition is at the later side of my presentation. And this is the existing condition with MCDP interventions. Here stage curve we have taken in the Parliament Lake that is located in the middle of our basin. Dotted line of the red dotted line represent the existing with the stage hydrograph at the Parliament Lake corresponding to the existing condition of the basin before implementing the MCDP project. And with the implementation of this project, that was reduced up to the dark red color location. That is the water level is reduced up to 2.5. This is we call correspond to the worst scenarios. And then again, you can see the this green color dotted line. This represents the water stage hydrograph at this Parliament Lake with the favorable condition. And after implementing project, it was reduced up to below 2 meter MS. 2 meter MS is the threshold level that we are going to maintain at Parliament Lake, because Parliament Lake is almost just above the 2 meter MS. And with this one, you can see here, I will explain at the side. These are the location and intervention we have completed on the Metro Colombo Urban Development Project. With more detail, if you talk about sorry. Yes, yeah. This is the one of the intervention we have completed under Metro Colombo Urban Development. This is a pumping station we have carried out at the Ambatale, one of the diversion canal. We call it Madhya. This is the pumping station of capacity is about 20 meter cubic. Earlier there was a floodgate only, but under this one we were able to construct the pumping station. And then again we talk about yes, this is the trans Madhya South diversion scheme. Under this one we are going to divert the runoff which is fallen into 14.5 square kilometer catchment in the Greater Colombo to the adjoining basin. what's called trans basin diversion, whereas that is still in the design process. And then let's talk about the this one. This is a new outfall to our basin and pumping station. We call it south diversion. There are two pumping. It has a capacity of 5 cubic meter per second, and this is a great improvement to the basin. And again, south diversion. This is a pumping station located at the outfall of North Lock Gate, one of the outfall canal, and the capacity of this pumping station is about 30 meter cubic per second. And then again, Colonnava diversion canal. Actually, we constructed this one across the flood band that was created in that was constructed in 1935 by in order to prevent the protect this Greater Colombo Basin from the flooding of Canal River. Now we have constructed gated structure. During the lower water level of the Canal River, we can send more and more inland water to this one. And likewise, we have completed all these new nuclear tunnels, and this is a new outfall. Earlier, we have one small tunnel that is called nuclear tunnel, but under this project, we have created another underground tunnel. We call it nuclear tunnel. The diameter of this one is about 3 meter and 14 meter cubic per second. The capacity of this tunnel. And with this one, actually, we were able to increase the capacity of the basin twice. And in addition to this one, our corporation has also selected 16 number of upstream storage tanks to build. Already we were able to complete several upstream storage tank like detention and as a detention and retention pond. Here you can see some of the photographs. The retention pond we have created that is nature friendly, and we name it as DSR Park, very famous in Colombo area people. And this one of the retention pond, it is also located close to Parliament premises. And likewise, this Kimbulawala, very beautiful retention pond, Ampalawatta, all this. And then I would like to draw your attention to this slide. Here under this MCDP project, we were able to implement hydrometeor data management system. First time in our corporation, we have developed this one weather forecasting model. With the we can predict this rainfall 2 days in advance. We have developed this one for the Canal River Basin. With this predicted model, data, we run the hydrodynamic model, and thereby we predict the water level 2 days in advance. It's a new thing for our corporation, and our I think, according to my mind, new things to Sri Lanka. And
1 minute left.
Yeah, I will try to complete this one. And these are the stations, what level gauges we have installed to get the data. And what we have discussed, all the activities that we have carried out in order to manage the peak flow of the basin. Hereafter, I will explain the activities that we have taken to manage the water quality. We have already monthly, we have monitored about water quality in the basin at 28 locations. And these are the parameters that we have checked for the water quality. And in addition to that, by now we have identified 1,530 locations of pollutant sources. As you can see here, we will take measures to minimize, to stop these pollutant sources. And these are the one of the mechanisms that we have already adapted in some of the lakes, that is a floating wetland. And this is very successful case in the case of improving the quality. And these are the soft banking method that we adapted at the moment to protect the embankment of the canal system. Earlier, what we have done is to use the gabion wall to protect the both sides of the canal, and reverse pumping arrangement. At the Nagala, we have, as I explained earlier, we have concerned one pumping station at the Nagalagama out, one of the outfall canal. Here also we improve the reverse pumping arrangement, because in the during the dry season, our water quality of the basin is very much bad. But with this introduction, we were pump the calorie of water into the basin and flush out this polluted water. This is one of the mechanisms we have used to improve the quality. In addition to this one, actually with this MCDP project, we practice the Colombo wetland management strategy that is formulated on these 5 pillars, namely recognition, prevention, restoration, and governing like this. I'm not going to make details. And recognition, you know that we have to understand the value and benefit of the wetland. Likewise, prevention, you know that already we are in this wetland in the basin is under threatened to minimize this one. So we have to prevent this further encroachment of wetland under this strategy. And these, you can see the quality of the water quality in the basin. That was this project was done by one of the under this wetland strategy project carried out under Greater Colombo Flood Control, Greater Colombo Metro Colombo Development Project. And this with this one, actually future engineer should pay more attention about these 4 areas to develop future to enhance the future system of the this basin. One is integrated stormwater management system. We have to get the participatory approach to design and make decision making process for this one. And also, as Professor Lalish says in his presentation, we have to give much more consideration of climate change impact, and also land use management strategies and wetland management policy. These are the key areas that one has to pay more attention in the future scenario. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Kirti, for the excellent presentation. Our next speaker is Dr. Xue Yue Leong, consultant to Tropical Marine Science Institute, NUS, who is well known for his work in stormwater management and modeling. Prof. Leong will share his work on novel satellite DEM improvement, scheme using multispectral imagery and artificial neural network relevant data for accurate flood simulations. Floor is yours, Prof. Leong.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Lim. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, first of all, I need to apologize that I cannot control my own PowerPoint, and also that cannot be open on the other side. So anyway, one colleague from the organizer will control this PDF form. Okay, anyway, let's try to make the best out of these challenges. All right, my talk essentially focused on one single parameters, DEM, digital elevation model, which is required by the numerical model listed by Professor Lalith. Yeah, so you're dealing with such as like HECRAS, Mike Urban, SWIM, what's not. Anyway, so let's look into it. Now, usually when you have a project, regardless whether research project or commercial project, your funding is quite limited. Time also is very limited too. It's quite luxurious to do some survey on the ground. All right, this is where we are operating as a poor company. Let's put it this way. We are with a limited funding. So we want to get the digital elevation model for the numerical models. Okay, next slide, please. All right, quickly on the outline, I will give you a little bit of why we want to do this, and then the scheme we're proposing to come up with a low cost and high quality DEM. After doing that, as usual, when you calibrate, validate, then of course, at the end of the day, you want to apply it, whether in your own country or somewhere else. We get back to that point later on. And then we have a summaries. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, so this particular slide highlight what are the components essentially. You're dealing with data and the flood model, which has been listed by Professor Lalif, the first speaker. And then once you have that, you run the model and you come up with the results, and you want to do some plotting, the flood hazard map for the engineers or whoever the one handling it to do the next steps. Now, I'm trying to highlight on the left-hand side, the left panel, a DEM. I'm just focusing on that, okay? Now, the reason with that DEM, usually the data are costly. If you want to do some survey, the data is costly, or often, if you're dealing with something which are not related to the government, in other words, are not the funders of this particular project, they will not share the DEM with you. Yeah, that's considered classified or confidential. Okay. All right, now, so that's the reason, one of the things we are, in this particular presentation, we focus on DEM as a beggars. Right? You want to get it from cheap sources. The cheap source is nothing but satellite data. The satellite data, there are many satellite data. Some of them are commercial. Of course, you have to pay, but we are looking into the publicly accessible DEM, satellite DEM data. Next, please. All right, now on the right panel, you see SRTM, the Shuttle Radar Topography Mission, that is 90-meter resolution until 2015. After that, 30-meter. Okay, prior to that, prior to 2015, only US, since SRTM is part of US from NASA, only US has a 30-meter resolution. But from 2015 onward, the whole world is 30-meter resolution. Okay, so directly from SRTM for a particular site, you could see the plot there, SRTM DEM, and then below that, the high resolution DEM, you could see literally much better resolution, much clearer picture. Now, if you're looking at the left panel, I indicated with the rural, urban, and forest. Rural, in the rural area, you have only few places with buildings. The buildings are sparsely distributed. So taking the average of whatever the satellite data picked up, in principle, not much of a loss. Of course, you like to have a better one, of course. But if you're dealing with the rural, sorry, urban area, if you look at the center, right, the buildings, high-rise building, and so on and so forth, remember when we're dealing with the flooding, of concern is nothing but your road level. If you have a DEM of 90 by 90 meter resolution, or even 30 by 30 meter resolution with high-rise building included in that particular 30 by 30 meter resolution, your road level become very high. Okay, so that is problematic. Now, forest area should be okay too. Okay, so you have a canopy. Now, let's move on to the next slide, please. Now, just quickly in the introduction here, I'd like to show you one particular area in Singapore. On the left panel, the top photograph, you have a rectangle area. Anyway, enlarging it, you have the two slides, the two pictures at the bottom, right? On the top, at the bottom side, this is DEM directly from the satellite without improving it whatsoever. Yeah, and the top one, you have a high resolution DEM. And with the, again, both are the same boundary conditions as far as the sea level, as far as the rainfall, IDF curve, whatever, doesn't matter. The same, both the same boundary condition and initial condition for both sides. Now you see the high resolution DEM, you could see a lot of flood areas there in blues or red here and there. Whereas almost next to nothing, there's no flooding at all at the bottom one, if you got it directly from the SRTM. Okay, so that's ding, 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 an alert to you, alerting you that you better be careful, particularly in the old days before 2015, 90 by 90 meter resolution. Now it's already 30 by 30 meter resolution. But down there, the one I show you, that is nothing but 30 by 30 meter resolution. Next slide, please. All right, now, as far as SRTM is concerned, we focus for this talk on SRTM. There are many different satellite data, but again, let's focus on one, what is called the shuttle radar topography mission. Now, you see the red box, red boundary, it covers the whole world, except, again, the Antarctic, Arctic, that's fine. We're not looking into that, okay? So, all right, next, please. Now, too bad I cannot use the animation here. Let's look at the top panel, Nice in France. The second panel, middle panel is nothing but Bukit Timah in Singapore. And the last panel, the bottom panel, is nothing but Greater Jakarta in Indonesia. Anyway, the top panel first. What you see on the left panel throughout the satellite imagery of the area we're dealing with, whether in Nice in France, or Bukit Timah in Singapore, or Indonesia, doesn't matter. That's the imagery, the satellite imagery for these three different places, these three different sites. But remember that satellite imagery, they are 2D, two-dimensional. Now, what you see on the middle panel, that's the survey DEM. It doesn't matter where it comes from. Could be observation surveyed by human being or using the LiDAR and so on and so forth, doesn't matter. Okay, so for Nice, we have that. For Singapore, we have that. For Jakarta, we don't get it. Just think about it, you don't get it either. Now, SRTM on the third panel, right panel, you got it everywhere, the whole world. Okay, now you could see how blurred they are, particularly the one in Nice, okay, followed by Singapore, and followed by the one in Jakarta. Okay, so it's still quite blurred, except you don't have anything to compare with DEM, except you could compare a little bit more from the satellite imagery. As far as height is concerned, nothing. You cannot do that for Jakarta. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so what we will do is the following. We come up with a scheme to improve the SRTM DEM. So we use that, like you see on this particular slide here, training and validation in Nice, France. I'll tell you the reason why we use that in France. Okay, so and then after that we move on to Singapore. We pretend we don't have any DEM, survey DEM. So we have it. So we just simply use the train model from Nice, trained in Nice, and apply that to Singapore, and then compare that with the DEM in Singapore. See how good they are. Only when they are good, then we have more confidence to move on to some other places in which we don't have any survey DEM at all. Okay, so that's the idea of the whole thing. Now, in this case, training and validation in Nice, and move on to validation in Singapore, where we pretend we do not have any DEM, and then to Jakarta, literally we don't have any DEM. Next slide, please. Right, Jakarta is quite important. That beside the capital city of Indonesia. Now, if you see the middle panel, you have the black boundary. That's the metropolitan of the capital. And the boundary itself, the Greater Jakarta, is very hilly, all the way to the top at the bottom there, point A, B, C. Often, I like to let you know that often in the metropolitan itself, bounded by the black boundary, it has no rainfall, or the rainfall quite mild, but the flooding occurred. because it comes from the hilly area in point A and so on, so between point A and point B. So the flooding caused by that. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next. All right. So the research objective essentially, again, I already mentioned it, to come up with a cost-effective and reliable flood map. Okay. So high quality DEM using publicly accessible remote sensing, and then using the artificial neural network, machine learning, yeah, to come up with this particular scheme. Next slide, please. All right, so the idea is quite simple. On the left panel, so you have this multispectral imagery, DEM to be improved coming from SRTM in our discussion now. And then we need also the reference DEM during the training time. Okay, so you move on with the artificial neural network, and then you come up with the train model resulting from this data coming from Nice in France. The reason we have France, we use France because we are lucky enough to get our partner on that side. Is for the presentation today, our reference data is 1 by 1 meter resolution. But except the last 1 year, we have received also the very high resolution, even higher resolution data from Nice, 0.25 meter resolution using LiDAR and so on and so forth. Okay, so we will not be discussing on that rather than the scheme here based on the 1 by 1 meter resolution. So once we have that, we can see whether we can use that train model from Nice in somewhere else where the DEM is not available at all. Okay, let's move on. Next one, please. Okay, so there are 3 panels here. SRTM with the resolution of 30 by 30 meter resolution. The Sentinel, we also use Sentinel-2 satellite data. These are reflecting your land users. Okay, so it has a different resolution. We use the 10 by 10 meter resolution. And then finally, the reference elevation from Nice, which is a 1 by 1 meter resolution. Okay, so now you have 3 different products of 3 different resolution. Obviously, you have to synchronize them. Okay, for this particular presentation, we synchronize them to 10 by 10 meter resolution, all of them to 10 by 10. Next slide, please. Okay, now, same thing with Sentinel. You have everywhere in the world these land users. Okay, some of them are every 5 days, the frequency of this particular satellite. Some of them, some area, 10 by 10 days frequency. Okay, the message is SRTM, we got it for the whole world except Arctic and Antarctic. And the same thing also with Sentinel-2. We got everything for the whole world. Next, please. Now, the land use, this Sentinel, just quickly looking at the picture, the one circled, we have altogether 13 bands. Okay, 13 bands, but we use for this particular study only 5 bands, the one in the circle, 8 bands, sorry, the one in the circle. The remaining 5 are not used at all because they are not useful for our study. We remember that we want to do some flooding, so meaning rainfall is of important, aerosol are not important at all, whatever. Anyway, so we look at the one in the circle, that 8 bands. Next, please. Okay, never mind about this one. I think we skipped that. Okay. Now, again, I already mentioned it earlier before we start rolling on to the results and the scheme and the result. Okay, so we're looking at 3 different places here. Nice for training and validation first. Only when the validation is good at the site where, of course, of different sites in the country where we learn it, we train our model. Only then you have more confidence to move on to somewhere else, particularly Singapore. It's about, when you travel by flight, it's about 12 hours or 13 hours. So you can imagine how long it is. Each hour is usually the flight, the speed, I did not Google it, the speed, I mean the distance, the speed is about 800 kilometers per hour, that's it. All right, so anyway, once we have confidence in Singapore, then you can move on to another places, wherever they are. Okay, next please. All right, in Nice itself, we have data of 1 by 1 meter resolution, observe, LiDAR, and so on and so forth. Now, we use part of it, 12 out of, let's make it simple, 12 out of 18 square kilometers for training, and the remaining 5 square kilometers for validation. Yeah. The next slides, we will present to you only the validation, because training usually is good. If they're not good, you don't move on. You keep on training until you finally happy with your result. Only then you move on to the validation. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay, I think we have discussed about it over here. We have a Sentinel, 8 parameters, 8 bands. So, and then 1 DEM from SRTM, 9 parameters. And then we have the building footprints. And then we have also the in the output reference DEM. Okay, now, which I have not discussed anything at all about the RGB, red, green, blue. We'll discuss about, we'll mention about it later on. Altogether, we have now for this is about 9 input parameters for the ANN, artificial neural network. Next, please. Okay. Now, what I want to use to bet, I cannot control my presentation here using animation. What I want to refer to you is nothing but the left panels, the pictures. Forget about the altogether the scatter plot, all the stuff. Okay. Look at the imagery, satellite imagery, and then you have the reference DEM. What I want you to compare with is nothing but SRTM dish, which is at the bottom left, SRTM DEM, and the improved SRTM. Remember, after training, only then you improve it. The training side. Now this one is, remember, this is the validation side. So I believe you agree with me. If you compare the SRTM DEM with the reference DEM and improve SRTM with the reference DEM, it's quite clear that you have a much clearer view of the resulting from the improved SRTM. Okay. Anyway, the right panels altogether, you could see that the improvement is 38% improvement. Prior to this, when we did using the 90 by 90 meter resolution, it's more than 50% improvement, that sort of thing. Anyway, okay, next, please. Right, so this particular slide, we want to show you how good that particular, the same side, validation side in NIS, improve SRTM, compared to that coming from the German aerospace DLR, Tandem X. You have to pay through your nose. 30 euro per square kilometers. Okay. Okay. So Tandem X, even the one, well, now it's cheaper, 5 euros per square kilometers, because they have a new new satellite already launched. There you go. The old one, they sell it at a lower price, 5 euros per square kilometers. Anyway, the one on the left hand side is nothing but free, SRTM. Right, next, please.
Prof. Leong, 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes.
Yep. Yep. Now, if you look at the comparison to Singapore, we train in NIS, but validate in Singapore. That is nothing but the bottom 2 panel there, SRTM and improve SRTM. Obviously, you agree again, SRTM, improve SRTM is better than the directly coming from SRTM DEM. Again, you're comparing with that with the reference DEM. Okay? Next, please. Now, what happened? We discussed about it. We have Singapore, the DEM in Singapore coming from the government agency. Okay. Now, if you train in Singapore and then apply that, validate that on another site in Singapore, obviously it should be quite clear because the signature are much clearer. I mean, it's much similar, rather than using the signature of NIS far away. So you could see now the improved SRTM trained in Singapore, which is the bottom right, yeah, compared to the middle panel there. Again, just a comment, quickly a comment here. Next slide, please. Now it's time to apply that to somewhere where we don't even have the DEM, either because the government in Indonesia does not want to share with you, or wherever, that whatever reason it is. Okay, so here the metropolitan itself, we use compare the area 1, 2, and 3. I will focus on 1. Next, please. Okay. Again here, improve SRTM, DEM on the right panel compared to the satellite imagery only. You don't have the observe. We don't have you observe DEM. Okay, compared to the SRTM, DEM directly coming from SRTM. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So now, so big deal. Let me show you. It is a big deal. Okay, can you next slide, please? The black area. Sorry, I indicated the 2 arrows there. Rivers and canals. Those are coming from directly from the information. Yeah. The red. Sorry. You have 2 lines. One is yellow. The other one is green. If you use the SRTM directly from, sorry, the DEM coming from SRTM, you will have the canal shifted quite a bit, which is nothing but your green color representing your canal or rivers. Whereas the yellow color line is coming from the improved SRTM, DEM. Yeah? So this is quite a big deal, particularly those of us work with the numerical model. Definitely, this one is definitely a big deal. Next, please. Okay, anyway, number 2 and 3, area 2 and 3, similarly, you could see here the improved SRTM. You could see the buildings as well as the street and so on and so forth for area 2, and the same thing also area 3. Anyway, the whole thing is going to be on the website anyway, so you can slowly look through it. Next slide, please. Okay, well, one more thing is nothing but looking at the comparing using the 50-year return period future, and of course SRTM, improve SRTM on the left panel. You could see that is even more flooding compared to the 100-year return period. Yep, of the SRTM on the right panel directly from the SRTM. Yeah. Definitely.
Can you roll in 1 minute?
Yep, 1 minute we finish it. Next, please. Okay, so one more demonstration. It's nothing but, again, you can Google it. Some areas, the flooded zone, and nothing is on the left-hand side, the left, bottom left, and the right is coming from the improved SRTM. Next one, please. Okay, summaries. Essentially, we discussed about it. This particular scheme could be used for not only for SRTM. We tested that also with the AW3D and the German Aerospace Tandem X. Okay. Now, the ANN presented here sufficiently provide us high DEM improvement to use just 1 hidden layer. No need to be fancy, two hidden layer, 3 hidden layer, whatsoever. Just 1 hidden layer. The result is good enough compared to the 2 layers or 3 hidden layers. Okay. The activation function we use is nothing but sigmoid. The CNN also we tested that, but except it yields slightly less error in this particular study. Yeah. The trained ANN in NEES, they have observed DEM 1 meter, is very important and satisfactorily tested on the various countries in Southeast Asia, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Cambodia. Okay, the NEES topography, this is important message. Okay, the NEES elevation, the topography of NEES is ranging from 0 to 100 meters. So that's the reason the trained ANN in NEES can be used in Singapore, which is essentially quite flat like a pancake, so to speak. Okay, whereas you cannot do that. You train in Singapore, you cannot do that for NEES because you don't have the data to train with flat to high resolution. Okay, so last one, I think. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, just acknowledgement. I have to do that. The AI Singapore, AIC, the funding coming from there. Again, the data coming from German Aerospace, and then Singapore Authority, and so on and so forth. Lastly, last slide is nothing but when you want to read the detail, it's nothing but the publication. I listed for that reason. If you want to look at the detail. Okay, thank you very much.
Let me once again thank our fantastic speakers for giving their time and insight today. So now let us proceed to Q&A session. I would like to invite our moderator, Professor Gunawardena, and all speakers for panel discussion. Now I will turn the floor over to Prof. Gunawardena.
Good afternoon. I think we listened to very interesting 4 presentations, 2 from Sri Lanka and 2 from Singapore. And now it's the time for panel discussion and question and answer sessions. Right. Any questions? Well, I'd like to ask one question from Engineer Kirtiratna. And now, I mean, that was a very interesting and comprehensive presentation. And during his presentation, he mentioned that there are more than 1,000 pollutant outlets in Colombo area. And what interventions have you all made in order to reduce?
Thank you, Professor. Actually, now we are in the process of finding the data, and that is why now in the stage of finding out the source polluter. So once we completed this one, our aim is to reduce this polluter from the source of point, either including some new say some places we have find out that a storage system directly connected into the canal. In that case, we supposed to divert it. Some places
I think we lost. Yeah.
Our long-term policy is to detach this pump from the source. Until that, we use these floating wetland mechanisms to mitigate this effluent concentration. Long-term one is to separate this effluent from the main system. Likewise, this 1,530 point we have identified. In the long-term solution, we are going to separate from the main basin. Until that one, we supposed to introduce this what is called floating wetland mechanisms to improve the water quality.
Thank you.
There's one question in the chat box, and that question is for me. Can I answer it?
Yes, please. Yes, go ahead.
All right. This question is from my colleague, Professor N. So the question is, what are the long-term nutrient removal efficiency of the pilot scale retention system? Okay, so we monitored our pilot scale system, especially the one in Singapore, because we are able to easily access it, and we monitor them for almost like 2 years. Okay, so during this 2 years period of time, we see this performance are rather stable for TSS. For total nitrogen, actually is you can see actually is getting stabilized after a couple of months. It will stay there. Why it will stay there? That it doesn't drop. We believe that's because the plants comes in. The plants comes in to help to uptake the nutrient. For the phosphorus, within our monitoring period of 2 years, it was doing very well because we have this water treatment plant residue, which is a very good adsorbent. It can absorb, according to the literature, probably 4 to 5 years, the phosphorus in the stormwater. But after 4 to 5 years, then that could be a different story because the capacity has been run out. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten a fund to continuously monitor for 5 years. So this is something I think we need to watch out. 4 to 5 years later, some monitoring need to be done. And if the water treatment plant residue is found already exhausted in terms of its absorption capacity, then probably we have to replace them. So that would be the solution. Okay. And I have another question also, I think. Another question is about the removal mechanism of NNP. All right. So the question is it by adsorption only or some other mechanism? For phosphorus is adsorption, but of course, later part we will have plants comes in to do uptake. Nitrogen removal for ammonia, the mechanism is nitrification. But for nitrate, we suspect, we only get some adsorption and followed by plant uptake. We do not really build a submerged zone. That's why we don't have the mechanism, which is so-called denitrification. But if you do have a submerged zone, which you can also consider for your bioretention system, then the nitrate removal can be as high as 80%. But you can see we only achieve 40%. So that's relevant to our design. So, but 40% is roughly okay already, according to our treatment objective. If you want to design the submerged zone, you will make your system deeper and more expensive. All right, I hope I answered those questions.
Any more questions or comments?
I think there's one more for me, and I think that then there's others for Professor Lalis. It's in the chat box. There's one question about this so-called waste system. What is the main challenge to commercialize this technology? How about the cost per square meter? Yeah, what is the cost per square meter? We have calculated before. But I think that value is not really that meaningful because all the cost is based on our material we purchase and small quantity of material we purchase from the market. But roughly my impression is we talk about per cubic meter. Tony got any idea per cubic meter how much is that the so-called ring garden? Because Tony is also in my research team for this kind of a system. You have impression on that?
I can't remember.
Yeah, we can find out this information for you, but the one we estimate is definitely more expensive than the real market value. Because if you buy all the materials in the large quantity, you are able to reduce. And because we call the tender, our system is only like 30 square meters big, and then I think the tendering cost tends to be high as well. And the main challenge is to commercialize this technology. We feel that the challenges is that you need to have some good knowledge in terms of what kind of soil amendment you can put into your system in that particular local condition. So you can see actually when we move to China side, the Tianjin City, we redevelop this the soil amendments. We are not just counting on the recipe from Singapore and go there and do it. It may not really work, and that actually will increase the cost if we don't consider local condition. Instead, we get a lot of local materials and we put into our soil, and but of course based on the same principle, so we are able to develop another type of soil, but it's more suitable for Tianjin's case. Thank you very much, Dr. Law.
I have a question from Professor Lalit, and you sort of move faster during the latter part of your presentation because of the time limitation. The question that I wanted to pose you is that you mentioned about the climate change. Now those the tanks that we have built in the past, and now you mentioned about 30,000 tanks. What would happen if this climate change increases the intensity and increase the runoff? I mean, are there any research being done in order to address this issue, especially to reduce the breach of these minor tanks?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. That's an important question. At the moment, actually, there is a project funded by the Green Climate Fund and the World Bank. The Agrarian Services is conducting a kind of a study investigating rainfall intensities and the climate change impact. So we are also part of that. Luckily, they have a huge database. I don't think that an individual researcher or any other individual organization would be able to be that rich with data. Data is always scarce. So luckily, Agrarian Services Department, they have collected such a nice data set. So they are analyzing the rainfall patterns at the moment. Initial results indicate that you know that we have agroecological zones. According to the initial investigations, some of the agroecological zones now do not belong to that particular category. That means the boundaries have shifted, rainfall intensity has changed, in some cases increased, of course. And the main issue here we have is, even with the annual average rainfall, without any change in the annual average rainfall, or sometimes even with the declining trend in the annual average rainfall, we observe or we experience more frequent extreme events. So at the moment, they have selected a large sample of small to medium-sized tanks. They are the mostly affected due to these variations in the climate pattern, and they are conducting an evaluation of their safety as well as the possibility of breaching under possible climate change scenarios. So this publication will be, I think, made out very soon. That will be an interesting finding for most of the hydrologists as well as the researchers in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor. I think there's a question.
Yes, I have received a question in the chat box. May I go through it?
Yeah,
and that's about the SWMM, MICURBAN and HECRAS models I mentioned about. The question is about whether these are used by Sri Lanka Drainage Authority. At the moment, actually, the projects I presented are research studies. They can be implemented to other basins as well, but due to the data scarcity and access issues, we selected Mallathuvai Basin. One of our research students conducted the study, and that is based on the water energy model, WEP model, and the SWMM was applied to several other regions for stormwater management purposes, including the Kotte Sri Jawatanapura area, as well as we have carried out studies in Jatna Peninsula and also in Batiklo area. So when it comes to local level flood issues, we can go up to the level of roadside drains. Otherwise, normally what happens is during an extreme flood event, most of these tertiary level small drainage canals will be automatically filled. So we focus more on the main drainage canals. So in that case, depending on the intensity or the return period of the flood event you are analyzing, you can decide whether you need to include small drainage canals also in the model. If it is 1 to 2 year rainfall intensity or return period, then of course you need to consider those small drainage network as well. Otherwise, if you are analyzing 50 year to 100 year return period flood event, you can focus more on larger or primary canals or channels. Thank you, sir.
Right. There's a question for Dr. Leon. And the question is, how does you foresee the models used for Singapore apply to Sri Lankan condition?
Okay, I think it should be, again, should not be a problem at all because we try at different places. So long your, number one, most importantly, is your topography, the location where you want to use it is between 0 and 100 meter, which are the data trained in these. Now, I'd like to share a little bit trick. Assuming your area, the area of you're considering is much higher than that, what you could do is you simply subtract, because you see the most important thing is that the reflectance from the Sentinel-2, the satellite is so much, I mean, the distance is so much different, I mean, so much larger than whatever subtraction you can have. Assuming you're going all the way to 2,500, I noticed from the first speaker's talk, the elevation is roughly between 0 and 2,005 in Sri Lanka. Yeah. So now if the area is between 1,000 and 2,500, what you could do is simply subtract all the elevation by 1,000. So you're dealing with between 0 and 1,500, as I said. And use that, and then of course you have to add them up later on. Because of importance is nothing but the actual elevation, absolute elevation later on. Yeah, just do a little trick. Unless you have a data for training, which is similar to the location of your area. Yeah. Thank you.
Right, I think that's a suggestion. Now, that's for the panel members to explore the possibilities of implementing rain garden system in urban areas in Sri Lanka. I think Professor Hu, perhaps you can lead this the discussion. The question, or perhaps the comment, is whether it's possible to implement rain garden systems in urban areas in Sri Lanka.
I think it's very feasible, and both the modeling colleagues and the like me, the quality people, we can actually jointly work with each other, because you know, for so-called rain garden, actually the infiltration is very important. It doesn't really have you know, the underneath drainage pipeline, so we get rid of that, then the infiltration become a challenge. if your in situ soil somehow it's not really that favorable for infiltration, then have a limitation. So that's why we need to have like our modeling colleagues comes in to simulate how fast the water is going to, penetrate through the in situ soil, and environmental engineering people comes in to look at the water quality improvement, and even our plant scientists can come in and to guide us in terms of the plantation, because I think Sri Lanka have probably different type of the weather condition, and the local species are also different. We have to count on the plants to do some long-term help for this removal of those nutrients. So all of those actually can come in together to join force and develop a such system. And this so-called rain garden has been proven working well in a number of the Singapore's location. We have tried, just now I mentioned to you about always our JCs. So the biggest area is about 30 square meter. Okay, but I mean in Sri Lanka, maybe if there's a need, they can consider a bigger area, and then probably can contribute more in terms of pollutant removal control for the local communities, and also helps to some extent, I need to emphasize to some extent, in terms of retention of the stormwater. So it doesn't really help for very extreme case, because you see we have we have to somehow, if the extreme case comes out, and we have to let it overflow, because it's beyond the capacity of the system. But for small and medium, that kind of stormwater situation, that kind of flow situation, we should be able to deal with. And together with the pollutants control, we have beautiful pollutants control kind of performance. So I leave it to our other panel to add on. I think definitely feasible in my opinion.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think I'd like to add one thing what Prof. Wu just mentioned. It's totally true that you may have a limitation, but I notice your rainfall is about 2,500 or a millimeter per year. It's similar to Singapore rainfall. Sometimes we have much higher than that. Yeah. Now, take note, like Prof. Wu mentioned already just now, for heavy storm, don't count on it. Do not count on it, because you can see the whole thing coming down right away, running off. You don't have the time to slow it down. And forget about your slowing down in the sense of like infiltrating. Don't count on it. Yeah, but it's better than nothing at all, though, because you may want to keep your receiving water body clean. This is it. Yeah.
Yeah, I may add on to one point, because just now I have seen our Sri Lanka colleagues showing that you have wet zone, you have intermediate zone, you have dry zone. So your precipitation are quite different. So I emphasize again, this kind of system is good for small to medium, that kind of flow situation, right? But the main emphasis is, number one, can detain your stormwater. Number two, very importantly, enhance your environmental quality, especially water quality, and definitely prevent your downstream a lot of pollution, that kind of concern. So I think in the way, I think it contribute in that sense.
Right. In view of no more questions. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to chair this panel discussion and Q&A sessions. And thank you very much, all of you. And back to you, Dr. Yi. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you all next time around. Bye-bye.